Friends, I want to challenge your thinking in my speech tonight. This talk is about reconsidering cults. I want to suggest that cults could actually be a solution to many of the biggest, most intractable problems that are facing America today. Let's talk about some of those problems. Addiction is a terrible scourge of modern American life. Millions of people are addicted to drugs or alcohol, and many more are addicted to habits like video games or gambling. Obesity is a serious problem affecting millions of people. Obesity causes people significant physical and mental health problems if they cannot address the problem. One issue that's becoming more widely prominent is the recognition that many people are alone. A lot of people, especially older people, don't have many friends, don't have people to talk to. They feel a tremendous emptiness in their life because of this lack of social interaction. One final concept that is becoming more and more of a problem is actually gender alienation. What this means is that men and women are moving further and further apart psychologically. So young people are having really difficult time forming healthy relationships. Now, since it's an election year, we should all think seriously about which candidate is going to do a better job at fixing these problems. Okay, that's a joke. Clearly, neither one is going to address these really significant problems that have escaped solutions for decades. Fundamentally, our social political system is just not adaptive and dynamic enough to solve the really big picture problems. One important aspect of the pathologies I mentioned is that they're related to disorders of the social environment. Here's an example. These kids are in a social group that considers smoking to be cool. And because of that unhealthy impact of the social environment, these kids are going to have very serious health impacts later in life because they've adopted this habit that's actually quite bad for them. So in the case of this group, there's a clear link between disorganization, disorder of the social environment, and bad health outcomes. And I think that's more general. The pathologies I mentioned at the start of the talk all involve issues with the social environment. If you're addicted, it's probably because your friends are addicted. If you're overweight, it's probably because you're in a social environment where eating too much and not exercising is considered normal. Here's an interesting aspect about modern America. We're very comfortable and okay with putting professionals in charge of different areas of our life. If you have a medical problem, you're going to go see a doctor. Maybe it's not a natural conversation. Maybe it's not the most comfortable conversation, but fundamentally, you're going to be okay with talking to a doctor about your problem and entrusting him or her to try to solve it. Same thing with lawyers. It might not be a comfortable conversation, but you're going to trust the legal professionals to try to solve your legal disputes if you have them. If you want to buy or sell a home, you're going to hire a real estate agent. These are all jobs that you don't really want to do yourself. It's not a good idea to prescribe yourself medical treatments. So we agree that the social environment is very important. It can cause health problems. It can be negative impact on our life if we are not mindful of managing it. So that leads to a question: who manages your social environment? And for the vast majority of us, the answer is no one. We try to do it on our own, but we're not very good at it. We probably don't do a very good job. And for many people, that leads to these negative outcomes and health impacts that I mentioned before. So that leads me to my idea of what a cult is and what a cult should be. Cult is a professionally managed social environment. A cult has a group of leaders or elders whose job it is to manage the group. They can do that by controlling who enters the group. They can enforce rules for the members of the group to follow, and they can set goals for the group to pursue. And by doing these things, they can ensure that the social environment in the cult is healthy and beneficial. Now, this is not just pie in the sky discussion. There is at least one example of a very successful cult in America today. That is the Amish. The Amish are quite healthy because they do mostly manual labor and they avoid processed foods. They are actually quite wealthy, surprisingly enough. They often own their own businesses and they're frugal and hardworking. One thing that's very significant about the Amish is they're one of the few groups that have a high fertility rate. Most groups in most countries are declining in population. And one way of understanding the success of the Amish is that they have a group of elders in their community, and these elders enforce the rules, make sure people are getting along, and generally ensure that the community is healthy. Now, I do want to address the stigma that cults have. Why do cults have a bad name in our society? Well, I believe that's because I believe we can understand that by analogy to the Prohibition era. So during Prohibition, alcohol was illegal. And so the only people who could provide alcohol were bad guys, the gangsters. Similarly, in modern America, cults have a stigma to them. So the people who are drawn to cult leadership are ones who have narcissism or psychopathy or other psychology problems. Friends, in the future, I think that becoming a cult leader will be a normal professional choice that people go and pursue. You could become a doctor or a lawyer or a cult leader. There's no such thing as it's not a question of cults being bad or good. Good cults are good, bad cults are bad. And good cults can really help their members live more fulfilling and healthier lives.